Every year, billions of dollars worth of goods, nearly half of America's sea freight, and countless international trade pass through the Panama Canal. It's a vital artery that connects the world's oceans and eases the movement of goods between continents. But there's one gripping issue with it. It's running out of water. The lack of water is reducing the number of ships that can pass through the canal each day, creating an enormous traffic jam and impacting the canal's operational capacity. Why is this happening, and what is the Panama government doing to solve this problem? In this video, we'll answer these questions by walking you through the challenges facing the Panama Canal and whether there's any hope of rescuing it. Then we will tell you about 4 other megaprojects vying to become the next global shortcut. Welcome back to PST Megaprojects. The Panama Canal, as we see it today, is the result of a U.S. project completed in 1914. It opened with much fanfare and was seen as an incredible triumph for an emerging world power. This was because it created a new shipping route across a continent and contained the largest dam and artificial lake in the world. But its design, which was considered so genius back then, ended up being why the canal is struggling today. The series of locks at either end of the canal are crucial to its design, but also its Achilles heel. It takes nearly 200 million liters of water to pass a ship through one of the locks, which greatly reduces the amount of water in the canal. No one back when the canal was first built would have been able to predict the devastating effects of climate change on the canal. In 2015, a massive drought caused the authorities to declare a state of emergency and limit the size of ships allowed to pass through it. The canal often depended on rainfall to make up for its low water supply, but the 2015 drought brought with it the driest rainy season in over a century. This was caused by El Niño, a weather phenomenon that affects Central and South America, causing rain in some areas and droughts in others. Then in 2023, the canal saw the longest dry spell in its history. The water level in the canal was so low that the number of ships being allowed to pass through it each day was reduced from 40 to 24, and in August, there was an unbelievable traffic jam of 160 ships queuing to pass through the canal. In addition to reducing the number of ships being allowed through the canal, the government also mandated that the ships not sail at full capacity. For example, the largest class of ships, the Neo-Panamax containers, were forced to carry 40% less cargo, so they sat higher in the shallow water. Canal authorities started selling slots in the canal to the highest bidder, and a tanker carrying liquefied natural gas paid $4 million in addition to the usual $400,000 sailing fee to skip the queue. So what is Panama's government doing to solve this problem? The Panama Canal authorities gave their backing last year to a plan to create a new reservoir for the canal. This plan, originally devised in the late 1990s, involves creating an artificial lake by damming the India River and then supplying Lake Gatun, which supplied the Panama Canal with fresh water via an 8-kilometer tunnel. But there's just one problem with this: a 2006 law that allowed the expansion of the canal's locks and banned the canal's authorities from constructing any more reservoirs, meaning that for this plan to go ahead, that law would have to be overturned. This won't be easy, as Panama has been rocked by a series of protests against a controversial new mining operation, which is feared will have a massive impact on the country's ecology and precarious supply of drinking water. So any plan for more construction will likely be met with similar opposition. While the government of Panama struggles to devise solutions to save its dying canal, long-forgotten schemes are coming to light, bypassing the canal entirely and providing solutions to the problem. One such solution is located in Nicaragua, a country that's north of Panama. For this country, the solution is building another canal, but not in Panama. In fact, there have been proposals for building a canal across Nicaragua dating back to hundreds of years ago, but nothing ever came to be. This is really strange, since just by looking at the proposed project, you'll immediately understand why it'd make the perfect replacement for the dying Panama Canal. Nicaragua's geography fits really well with the concept because of the already existing Lake Nicaragua. There's a very narrow isthmus to the west of the lake, about 19 kilometers wide, and another one to the east of the lake, about 100 kilometers wide. The plan is to combine the two and dig a canal across about 120 kilometers of land to create another link between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A very simple and effective plan. In fact, before it started building the Panama Canal, the US was initially more interested in building the Nicaragua Canal instead. Still, this idea was abandoned in favor of the shorter option in Panama, as the Panama Canal is only 82 kilometers. After the US abandoned it, the idea of the Nicaragua Canal eventually died out and was forgotten. More than half a century later, with the boost in globalization, the increase in commerce and the cost of fuel, and the limitations of the Panama Canal, the concept of a second canal became more attractive, and the idea for the Nicaragua Canal was revived in 2006 by the former president of Nicaragua, Enrique Bolaños. In 2012, the Nicaraguan government passed a new law authorizing the creation of a state-owned Nicaragua Canal Authority to the Panama Canal Authority. Then, in 2013, a year later, the government awarded the construction bid for the canal to a Chinese company called the Hong Kong Nicaragua Canal Development Company, or HKND. HKND was led by a Chinese billionaire businessman called Wang Jing, and his company quickly secured the backing of the Chinese government, which planned to spend a whopping $50 billion for the construction of the canal. HKND said the canal would be able to accommodate ships of up to 23,000 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, which is a measure equal to 20 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet of cargo. Comparatively, the Panama Canal could only accommodate 13,000 TS. As a result, the Nicaraguan GDP, which was $10.98 billion in 2013, was projected to double once the canal was completed, which completely justified the massive price tag to the two countries involved in the project. In turn, this ambitious forecast was justified because China and Nicaragua thought the canal would become a major rival to the Panama Canal and take a huge slice of its market share. And so, in exchange for building the canal that would double its economy, as well as providing all the funding for the project, the Nicaraguan government agreed to grant a mandate to HKND that would allow the Chinese company to be the sole operator of the canal for 50 years, with the option of extending that period for another 50 years later on. For the Chinese government, this project meant taking control of a Panama Canal rival for a full century, similar to how long the Panama Canal ended up being under America's control. This would have been a hard pill to swallow for the US government. But the US got lucky, as the project never even managed to get off the ground in the first place for various reasons. The first one was environmental concerns, as feasibility studies suggested that the project could end up introducing salt water from the ocean into Lake Nicaragua, which would have destroyed the largest source of freshwater in Central America. This threatened Nicaraguan farmers, who started protesting against the project when HKND wanted to take over their lands for the construction of areas where water from the canal would flow. In addition, environmental scientists worried that transoceanic ships passing through the canal would bring invasive species into Nicaragua's waters, which could threaten the extinction of marine life in the area. Aside from the environmental concerns, there were also concerns about the country's geological instability, which included active volcanoes and earthquakes that would have threatened the ships passing through the canal. Additionally, industry experts questioned the level of demand for a second canal and its potential as an ongoing business concern. Then, between 2015 and 2016, the Chinese stock market bubble burst thanks to regulators cracking down on illegal leverage trading, and this resulted in Wang Jing losing most of his fortune. In fact, within only 3 years, his estimated net worth fell rapidly from around $10 billion to around $95 million, a decline of more than 90%. HKND also saw financial difficulties and ended up closing its offices in 2018. As a result, the idea of the Nicaragua Canal was abandoned once more, and it was never picked up again. This came as no surprise, even though the country's longtime president, Daniel Ortega, who became president in 2007, constantly vowed that the project would eventually be completed. The reason why no one in Nicaragua takes Ortega's vows seriously is because he's an authoritarian and corrupt president, and has violently cracked down on opposition movements against him more than once during elections that have been called unfair and rigged. Thanks to this, most of Nicaragua's government officials are currently under US economic sanctions. So the Ortega regime has an incredibly terrible relationship with the US, eliminating one potential partner for the construction of the Panama Canal. Still, the idea for the canal can be picked up by China again, as part of its famous Belt and Road Initiative. If the Panama Canal were considered an engineering wonder in the 1900s, building a similar one, with the advanced technology we have today, would be much easier. The problem is that multiple participating countries defaulted on their debts during the Belt and Road Initiative, which is causing China to rethink the size of the projects it undertakes in the initiative. Despite all of this, hope isn't completely lost for the Nicaragua Canal.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
In May 2023, the country's foreign minister, Denis Moncada, discussed the possibility of a partnership between Nicaragua and Belarus to build the canal. Considering how corrupt the current government is, it's safe to say that we won't see it spending billions on building a canal anytime soon. But this doesn't mean that there aren't other projects that can work as a replacement for the Panama Canal. One such project is the Bi-Oceanic Corridor, a series of paved highways and bridges extending across lower South America through Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil. This road route will eventually enable trucks to carry goods from coast to coast rather than ships, but it saw significant challenges because of South America's geography. For example, the Andes mountain range, the longest continuous mountain chain in the world, has long presented a barrier to land construction and regional integration. Another challenging aspect is the Amazon rainforest in the north, which effectively blocks off the entirety of South America's northern coast from being able to access the rest of the continent. However, the Bi-Oceanic Corridor has overcome these challenges thanks to building sprees in its countries. It's expected to be completed in 2025, and it could boost trade in the Lithium Triangle region that spans Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. It's believed that this region possesses more than half of the world's known lithium reserves. This element is crucial for the creation of lithium batteries that power EVs, so trade route being built there will definitely help the entire region. The second potential alternative to the Panama Canal lies in Colombia. It will be a railway built around and through the Andes Mountains, connecting the country's existing railways between the Pacific and Caribbean Oceans. But this project won't happen overnight, as it will require nearly 200 kilometers worth of extra tracks to be built, including at least 11 kilometers worth of tunnels. Colombian government is currently expecting to award the building of the project to a company before 2026. As for the next mega project that could replace the Panama Canal, it's a railway in Mexico. Just like Panama and Nicaragua, proposals to dig another route connecting the Atlantic and the Pacific across Mexico have been made for centuries. The Isthmus of Tehuantepec, where the route will be created, separates the two oceans by about 192 kilometers, around the same length as Egypt's Suez Canal. Originally, this area had a railway to transport goods. However, this railway was abandoned as a trade route once the Panama Canal was created, especially around the same time as the Mexican Revolution. However, in 2020, former President AMLO revived the idea of revitalizing this route. The Mexican government is projecting that by 2028, this route will be capable of carrying 300,000 containers of cargo annually, which will increase to 1.4 million by 2033 when the route is fully operational. This project is expected to cost Mexico $2.85 billion, and once completed, it'll be a cheaper alternative for ships that want to pass through the Panama Canal. While these projects can be good alternatives to the Panama Canal, they still face a major risk: being overtaken by crime organizations or thieves. You could say that it won't be safe to transfer cargo worth billions every day on the roads of somewhat unstable countries, some of which are even known for infamous gangs. Even so, each of these projects poses a threat to the Panama Canal, forcing Panama's government into a race against time. Panama needs to quickly take action and save its canal from the impacts of climate change, so it can maintain its giant share in the global transportation world and maintain the country's prosperity. Well, that is everything for now. What do you think? Will the Panama Canal be replaced eventually? Please let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't, please subscribe and leave a like for this video. Your support helps us continue our work. Thanks again for your support, and I will see you in the next one.